So in this video, I would like to talk about sexual harassment. And what has prompted me to do this is the whole scandal surrounding Joe Best and Jill of Jilicious Journey. That's her YouTube channel. And I think I just would like to bring a little bit of clarification to what sexual harassment really is. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a very serious allegation and it shouldn't be taken lightly. Now, how am I qualified to give you clarification on what sexual harassment is? I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a judge. I don't understand all the nuances of the law surrounding, the interpretation of what sexual harassment is. I think we all pretty much understand, though, that it's more or less someone making unwanted sexual advances towards somebody else. And, there's different scenarios where that could take place. If I was in a public place and there was a beautiful woman walking by and I made a comment at her regarding her looks, and then, I start following her and, asking her out and wanting to be with her, and she's clearly not comfortable with this situation. She doesn't want to be a part of this, and I still continue on, I think that would qualify as sexual harassment. An employer using his leverage of power and influence over an employee to manipulate them into having a sexual relationship and using their job as a bargaining tool as to if they don't comply, then they may lose their job or they may not get that promotion that they wanted. That would qualify as sexual harassment. And those are some pretty obvious cases. Now there's others that probably get a little bit more fuzzy and a little bit more difficult to unravel and understand. But I myself was a victim of sexual harassment, and that's why I don't like the word to be used lightly. It is a serious allegation. It's a serious crime as far as I'm concerned. And it's completely disrespectful towards another person and their space. What happened here with me was, this was in the early 90s. I lived in a house that was shared accommodations. And as shared accommodations go, people move in and people move out. There's a lot of transition that takes place. And this, a young woman had just moved into the house. She was in her early 20s. I was in my early 30s at the time. And so the first night that she moved in, I was sitting in the living room with another guy of the house, and we were just talking, and she asked if she could join us, and we said sure. And within a very short period of time, she started talking about her sexual experiences that she had. And I thought this was really odd, that we hardly know this woman, and she's already talking like this with us. And so, I realized then that there's something not right here. And sure enough, by the end of the evening, my conclusion of her was that she's mentally unstable. She's got some real serious issues here. And to just keep my distance from her. Well, it wasn't too long afterwards that she started making sexual advances towards me. And I made it very clear that I wasn't interested. But she didn't take no for an answer. And this continued on day in and day out. And it got to the point where I was getting really stressed out. I was losing sleep. And I was beginning to be becoming afraid of her because I didn't know what she was really capable of. I mean, this has got to the point where she was knocking on my door at midnight trying to get into my bedroom, or I'd be in the kitchen cooking and she'd come down in lingerie, pretty much naked, and trying to seduce me. And no matter what I tried to do, she wouldn't stop. And so I talked to my family members, I talked to friends, and most everybody thought I was overreacting. And so not only was I a victim of sexual harassment, I was a victim of a double standard. How could a guy be, guys don't get sexually harassed by girls. That more or less was the attitude. And even my own girlfriend, when I told her, she had not yet met this girl that was sexually harassing me. I told her what was going on, thinking she would be a sympathetic ear, and she laughed. She thought, you know, the first thing she asked me was, well, was she fat? Was she ugly? Because, you know, come on, if you had like a bombshell of a girl in lingerie hitting on you, how could you consider that sexual harassment? It had nothing to do with looks. I have dated many girls of different looks, of different sizes, and it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with her mental stability, and I just didn't want to be with her. I personally had no interest in being with this woman, and but nobody was taking me seriously. And so it got to the point where I had to go to the police. I went to the police station because one night it was just getting out of hand. So I go to the police station. I'm really upset. And I'm trying to get the police to come over and intervene. They didn't want to go. They didn't take me seriously. They thought I was overreacting. So here I am. Nobody thinks what I'm saying is true, or it's not, I'm just exaggerating. But anyways, after an hour of being in the police station, I finally convinced them to come over. And so 2 police officers came over that evening. And when they went up to her to talk to her about this, she started yelling at them. She was telling them to F off. She spat on the police officer's foot. And guess what the police officers did? Nothing. They did nothing. Now, what if that were a guy being accused of sexual harassment and the girl's just sitting right there, the police officers are there, and the guy is telling the police officers to fuck off, and he spits on their feet? What do you think the police would have done to him? They probably would have knocked him to the ground and beat him and then arrested him. And but yeah, with her, not only did they not arrest her, they left her there with me, the victim. So I was still left on my own. They gave her a warning, you know, you got to leave this guy alone, blah, blah, blah. And then they left. They left me with her. I even tried to talk. Her parents came over one day to pick her up and take her somewhere. And I tried to talk to the father. And as I was, you know, I said, look, I'd like to talk to you. And he was ready to listen to me. And then the mother grabbed the father and said, don't talk to him. And she took him away. And so even her parents would not listen to me. So fortunately enough, she ended up moving out shortly afterwards. And that was it. It was end of story. But I can tell you, it was, during that time period, it was quite traumatic. Now afterwards, after she was out of my life, it was over. And I wasn't experiencing any serious psychological after effects or anything like that. You know, it was just in the moment, it was extremely stressful. I was losing sleep. I was afraid, and nobody was hearing me out. So that, I understand completely the seriousness of sexual harassment and anybody who's going through it. And as a guy, if that's how I felt, I can only imagine how a woman would feel under similar circumstances. It would be, I think it would be 10 times worse for them, if not more. But in the case of Joe and Jill, I don't see it. I don't see that kind of behavior going on with Joe. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding. There was a lot of game playing between the two of them. But I don't think there was actual sexual harassment. Joe may have crossed the line a couple times, but again, and I'm just going by what I've observed on YouTube, and that's all I can go on, right? Like the information that's being put out there, this to me does not qualify as sexual harassment. And I think we got to stop throwing that word around so lightly, because it's an insult to people who have been victims, like myself, who have been victims of sexual harassment. Please don't insult us with that. This doesn't even compare. This doesn't even come close to what real sexual harassment is. And that's basically my take on the whole situation. And sexual harassment. Now, you know, like, here's the deal. Like, you make it to unwanted sexual advances. Okay, so does that mean you can never make a sexual advance towards somebody that you think may be interested in you? Of course not. You can. But I mean, I think most of us understand is that when that other person clearly says, no, I am not interested, then you know that that's when it's time to stop. And most people are like that. And in the case, you know, with Joe, you know, again, there could have been a lot of other stuff going on that we just don't know about. But from what I see, I just don't see that kind of behavior with Joe. I think he's an emotionally immature man. I think Jill is emotionally immature. When I listened to her video, I thought I was listening to a 16-year-old girl. That's how she came across. And Joe is a 47-year-old man messing around with 20-year-old girls. You know, it's hard to feel sorry for a guy like that, because you should know better. You're playing with fire. But anyways, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's definitely not illegal for an older man to be dating a younger woman. And that's what I want to talk about next is it okay for older men to be with younger women? And, you know, some of the issues that come up with that kind of a relationship.